until it became apparent
Yeah.
that Edward Blythe was going to publish.
And in fact, even before Blythe, Darwin doesn't make too many references to Wallace, Alfred Wallace.
Alfred Wallace, yes, was the other one.
And, or to his grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, who was one of the original members of the Lunar Society of England. People who thought that there might be a better world in the future if we could make the conditions for humankind better. And it was Erasmus Darwin himself had a feeling that time was a lot longer than what was said in terms of how many hundreds of generations in the Old Testament. He had the powerful pre-thought that there was something to an evolutionary approach to life. And so this grandfather had already, must have instilled this, and it must have carried on into the grandson as well. And given all these influences, it's not strange to me that Darwin would go in the direction that he would. Mm-hmm. But Eiseley spends a great deal of time researching Darwin, and I think that research would pay off in the next book that we're going to review, mm-hmm. The Immense Journey.
You know, there are some people whom Eiseley does admire, and his attitude toward most human beings seems to be somewhat skeptical. Clinical, maybe is a better word than skeptical. But there are people who do merit his honest admiration, and one of them is his teacher, Frank Speck. But once again, Speck is kind of like Eiseley. He's a loner. And he relates to the Mohegan Indians. And some people even call him a shaman. So Eiseley does relate to Frank Speck. But, you know, he can't argue. Here's a good example of the Peter Principle. Eiseley keeps getting propelled higher and higher because his books are being published, books like The Immense Journey and The Night Country and The Unexpected Universe. They're getting published, so now he gets more and more recognition. He gets rich and famous, and so now they want to make him a provost at the University of Pennsylvania. Well, he's no administrator, and he doesn't really want to be an administrator, but he gets caught on the escalator. And once you get on that professional escalator, it's very hard to get off. And the next thing you know, he lands up there on the top floor. The escalator hasn't stopped, and he's up there as provost of the University of Pennsylvania. And you almost hear him saying, "What am I doing? What am I doing behind this desk?" Anyway.
And you find it interesting that the years that he was provost, the thing that he remembers from that was that there's a comment made about this impediment object which kind of intrudes into the street, and that people driving their cars have to slow down because they're afraid they're going to hit it. And Eiseley says, "Yeah, I was the one who kept it there. I made it more difficult for people to drive fast." And the person says, "Why?" And Eiseley in this book refers constantly to gambling, rolling of the die. And in this thing, he's talking about, again, rolling of the die, that life is always at the edge of uncertainty, that there is a percentage of success and failure. And in this case, he remembered the face of this woman who had been killed in an accident right in front of the university. And he vowed from that memory that he was going to make it as difficult for drivers to drive quickly. And so he left this impediment there to slow them down. And in fact, there was a curved corner which he turned into a right-handed corner so that people would have to stop, turn, and of course they'd be irritated because they couldn't go quickly. But now Eiseley said, I increased the probability that this would not happen again. And from that perspective, he felt that was his major achievement as provost.
That's what he accomplished. He managed to reroute that curve into a sharp corner.
Yeah, and gambling is this die. He rolls die in an empty house, and in the book, The Invisible Pyramid, he talks about being, I was a young boy rolling die in an old abandoned house. I was too young to have known that the old abandoned house I was playing was the universe. I would fight for man more fiercely if the years would take me back.
Yeah.
And I think...
You know, Eiseley says he's not a religious man, but methinks he does protest too much. He furnishes me, for example, with all these metaphors for the resurrection. For example, he's out here on the Platte River, and you want to read about the Platte River, read Eiseley. You want to read about the old brickyards over outside Lincoln, read Eiseley. You want to read about his uncle's house, we're going to visit it in 2 or 3 weeks, where he spent his college years. You can read a lot about Lincoln, Nebraska, just by reading Eiseley. But I was getting started on something and I lost the train. What was it?
Metaphors for religion.
Oh, metaphors for religion. That was it. Well, he writes about how he catches this catfish out there in the Platte River, and he puts it in a bucket of ice, and it's middle of winter, and he takes this this bucket of ice back to his basement, and the ice thaws, and when the ice thaws, the catfish comes back to life and jumps out. He comes down the next morning, and the catfish is there on the floor. Who brought that catfish back to life? He's asking. Now, can you get a better metaphor for resurrection than that? Not the resuscitation of a corpse necessarily, but new life emerging. And here now, in the very last of the book, and we've got about 2 or 3 minutes to go, he talks about the wasp, the birth of the wasp. On that brief journey, the wasp may well trip over the body of its own true mother, if this was her last burrow, a tomb for life and a tomb for death. Here the generations do not recognize each other. It remains only to tear open the doorway and rush upward to the sun. The dead past, its husks, its withered wings, are cast aside, scrambled over, in the frantic moment of resurrection. That's resurrection. The dead past, the husks of the dead past scrambled over in the frantic moment of resurrection. Well, this is the book, Loren Eiseley, All the Strange Hours, and it's a journey. Have I left anything out that you think of at the moment?
I think we've at least started it. I think there are a lot of other ideas that we really don't have time to go over in any great detail. I think we've hit most of the highlights that we can probably pack in an hour.
So we want to recommend that people read this book and also the other Eiseley books, Darwin and the Mysterious Mr. X, the books about Eiseley. There are several biographies. All you have to do is go to the library, and I'm learning now to operate that computer and find out where they are, and you can find them. So, thus endeth the reading of the lesson for the day.
Yes. Thank you.